Hi everyone, Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch President here with our weekly update here on social media. Thanks for joining us this holiday week. It's a day early, our weekly update, because of the Veterans Day holiday tomorrow. I'd like to take this time first to thank all of you veterans out there who have done so much to defend our freedoms and put your lives on the line. I can tell you one of the best things I hear is when I hear from veterans, because I haven't served, about how important they consider Judicial Watch's work. And of course, I think they're the ones getting shot at, and those are the ones who've gotten shot at. And it's the least we can do, both here at Judicial Watch and those of you individually, to make sure our government is accountable and worthy of the sacrifice our veterans have made on its behalf and on behalf of the citizenry whose freedoms they protect. So something to think about. We're obviously very interested in veterans issues here at Judicial Watch. We have a number of lawsuits there, but you could know we value the service of those of you who served and have been willing to make that ultimate sacrifice, including the family members of those who did make the ultimate sacrifice. So to that end, we've been doing a lot of work this week, and Judicial Watch has been in court battling for transparency and accountability on one of the most important issues facing Washington, D.C. and the way our government's running right now, which is the special counsel investigation that is targeting Team Trump. And we're asking for accountability for some of the misconduct that went on and is, to my view, going on right now. And plus, I've got an important update and a report on an astonishing lawsuit filed by the Antifa movement, Antifa, I don't know how it's pronounced, against essentially trying to stop Judicial Watch from getting documents. And they're attacking Judicial Watch in this court filing. And so now it's Judicial Watch versus Antifa in federal court. It's an extraordinary case. I'll talk to you about that as well. And of course, I don't know if you noticed, but this is a Judicial Watch t-shirt. And I'll talk to you about how you can get it at the end, because we've been getting all sorts of goodies for you to now get to show your support for our anti-corruption cause. But first up, James Comey, Robert Mueller. Were they colluding? That's a key question. Now if you've been watching our Facebook Live videos or these updates each week, you know that I have grave concerns about the Mueller operation, both its constitutionality, its out-of-control nature, and the fact it's been compromised by ethical conflicts and misdeeds by the Mueller team, including maybe Mr. Mueller himself. And one of those key issues is Mr. James Comey's testimony to the Senate last year. You may recall he testified to the Senate Intelligence Committee, and that was where he laid into Donald Trump, essentially called him a liar, disclosed that he leaked a memo through his friend to the New York Times in order to get a special counsel appointed. Just a quite a performance in terms of a former FBI director, and I don't mean that in a positive way. But reports were that he ran the testimony by the Justice Department and specifically Robert Mueller. And it was, quote, closely coordinated. According to Fox News, I think the quote is, closely coordinated. So Mueller closely coordinated with Comey in his anti-Trump testimony. A platform, that testimony, that public hearing which he used to attack the president and suggest he committed crimes. Now, I tell you what, if Comey and Mueller colluded on this testimony, or as I say, don't dare call it conspiracy, that would be a scandal. And we've asked for records about whether or not the Justice Department did coordinate with Comey on this testimony. Again, this anti-Trump testimony, where he talked about the memos he was writing and all sorts of other things. And certainly if Mueller was using Comey through this testimony to get at Trump, boy, that would be a scandal. And I just can't believe that the Justice Department, once again, isn't giving us any documents, because we've asked for the records. So when you don't give us documents if you're a federal agency and it's an important issue and we have the capacity, we go to court and sue. And that's what we did this week. We sued in federal court to find out whether Mueller and Comey, or the Justice Department generally, was colluding in this anti-Trump effort. Isn't it remarkable that it's Judicial Watch doing this? The Congress isn't asking these questions. This testimony was last year. It was last year. We asked for these records back in August. So it's been months and we still haven't gotten the records. And it's a simple request. I'm going to read you the request. All records of communications between the Department of Justice and former FBI Director James Comey prior to and regarding Comey's testimony before the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence on June 8, 2017. How many records could there be? How many records could there be? So we're asking about that. Now, tied to that is, of course, his testimony was about leaking the memo he wrote. He testified he wrote one of 9 memos. He wrote 9 memos, one of which he used a cutout, a friend, to leak to the New York Times in the hopes of getting a special counsel appointed to target President Trump with a criminal investigation. And his testimony was, I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter, and I put for the New York Times. I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. And what was the memo about? It was about a conversation he allegedly had with President Trump, where President Trump allegedly told him that if he could see fit, that he should do something to give General Flynn a break. Of course, General Flynn, who was former national security advisor, who was under investigation by, evidently, the FBI. Now, Comey in his testimony suggested, well, these were just personal records. No one bought that. We didn't buy it. So Judicial Watch has asked for these memos. Well, we asked specifically for the Flynn memo. We're thinking, if you can leak it to the New York Times, why can't the American people see it? Let's see what is actually in this memo. But of course, the Justice Department is protecting Comey, unfortunately. The Daily Caller News Foundation, who we're representing, they've asked for all the memos too. CNN, believe it or not, is asking for the memos, and they're not getting anything. None of us are, so we're suing in federal court. Now, what's remarkable is the Justice Department has come back and said that Comey's testimony, or certainly the leak of the Flynn memo, was unauthorized. And they compared it to the WikiLeaks leak. You heard that right. They compared it to the WikiLeaks leak. So now we have but they said if we were to release any of these memos, they won't tell us how many memos there are, but they don't want to release any of it because they were compiled for law enforcement purposes, which we think is baloney. And secondly, it might interfere with the Russia investigation. Well, hold on a second. So now Mueller's witness is being protected, even though he committed misconduct, according to the Justice Department, in releasing this memo? You know, and this is where you get this fundamental dishonesty by our agencies, where the Justice Department suggests the former FBI director committed a crime in releasing and leaking this memo, which is probably correct. Doesn't mean it can't be public otherwise. But they say they haven't demonstrated any interest in holding him accountable. So they want to have a cake and eat it too. So they accuse him of committing a crime. Now, WikiLeaks, by the way, allegedly got, remember the thinking is they were in league with the Russians. So this is what Mueller's witness is being compared to, Mr. Comey. Because remember, they're investigating, reportedly, the firing of Comey. So Judicial Watch says, look, this is just baloney. And we say he plainly did not use that memo for any recognized legitimate law enforcement purpose. He used it to settle a score with the President of the United States, who just fired him. So, we don't just come on and yell about what Comey is doing or what Mueller's doing. We come on and tell you also about court actions that Judicial Watch is taking. We filed a new lawsuit Another two lawsuits we had filed, we're now following up on in court, which is what I'm telling you about here. And who are we battling? The Justice Department. Again, it's the Trump Justice Department who is defending Comey, who was trying to destroy President Trump. It's just unbelievable. Now we have Justice Department confirmation that Comey was wrong to have leaked the memo. Yet they were settling a score. At least Comey was settling a score with the president in this illicit leak. And I don't understand how the Justice Department can continue to defend him by keeping these memos secret. And I know that Robert Mueller probably thinks Comey is a big witness of his and he wants to protect him, but that can't be the basis for keeping secret these records, which would document public corruption. This is a real rule of law crisis, and I was on TV earlier because it's been reported earlier this week. There's a new report out by Fox News that the Russian lawyer who you all heard about, who met with Donald Trump Jr., had met with this Fusion GPS representative just before the meeting and then shortly thereafter, during the same week that Fusion GPS was being paid by the Clintons, the campaign and the DNC. Which we now know, thanks to Donna Brazile, there was no distinction between the Clinton campaign and the DNC. So that looks like that was a setup. Now, this Fusion GPS, they're the one who created the dossier. So you've got this collusion between Comey and Mueller. There's no doubt it happened. That's why they don't want to give us the documents. You've got this illegal leak by Comey. And now we have this dossier and this scam of a operation, really, to try to get Trump back then. So I don't know how you conclude that either that meeting was either a setup, given the links to the Clinton operation. Again, this Clinton-funded group was working with the Russians while this Russian was meeting with Donald Trump Jr. And then this group later said that the Russians were colluding with the Trump people. How does that work? So between the dossier, Comey's leaks, the collusion, and the illegal secrecy, because we think the secrecy is illegal about everything, because we're not getting any information. We're not getting any of the Comey memos. We're not getting the dossier information. They won't even confirm or deny the dossier information exists. You know about it, but the FBI and Justice Department's pretending they can't confirm or deny it exists. And as I said earlier, all of this shows why the dossier especially, which to me is key to unraveling the whole anti-Trump Obama spying, leaking, and targeting, and is a scandal that would probably dwarf anything that's happened in modern American history, is going to blow up the Mueller investigation. As far as I'm concerned, the Mueller investigation should be shut down just based on the dossier scandal alone. And I think we're moving the needle here. I heard members of Congress this week were essentially saying the same thing, and they think Mueller ought to be fired. So I know it seems frustrating that it only seems like I'm the only one calling Mr. Mueller out. But others are hearing us. And it's not because of this one person. It's because I guarantee you they're hearing from people who see videos like this, who see our Judicial Watch information, see our lawsuits, see the secrecy, see the cover-up, and the members of Congress are beginning to respond. Now, right now, it's the conservative, principled members of Congress, but I think we're going to get somewhere. And I think we're going to get some accountability. And I think we're going to get this investigation back under control. You know, I'm not against investigating some of these issues, but, you know, we have to have a process that we can trust to do it, and we can't trust this current process. Just before I get on to this Antifa lawsuit, there was a Wall Street Journal story this week, speaking of Donna Brazile, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and the DNC, that Mueller is not investigating the DNC hacking. The Justice Department, U.S. Attorney's offices are looking at it. And I thought, well, hold on a second. I thought this is what he was hired to do. because the allegations were the Russians targeted and hacked the DNC and leaked the records in order to collude with the Trump people to steal the elections for Donald Trump. Yet Mueller isn't even looking at that core issue. Instead, he's looking at Manafort's mortgages, tax filings, and General Flynn's filings with respect to Turkey. But it just shows you how ridiculous this investigation is and how much of an affront it is to any semblance of good government and the rule of law. So now Judicial Watch is very much interested in the threat to our institutions caused by violent demonstrations. And to that end, we obviously have been watching these Antifa demonstrations, which have been terribly violent and really, if allowed to fester and continue without being checked, are fundamental threats to the First Amendment and our constitutional government. Because I think if anyone disagrees with them, it looks like you're targeted for violence potentially. So it's pretty dangerous stuff. And one of the leaders of the movement is a school teacher in Berkeley. You remember Berkeley has been the center of the storm there. And so Judicial Watch asked for records about this person. What happened is unbelievable because we've been doing this, I've been here almost 20 years, and I'm not aware of this happening before. So we had the state California Public Records Act request about this school teacher and what they were up to, whether there were documents and emails about her Antifa activities. I'm going to mispronounce the name repeatedly, so forgive me. And her groups associated with her, she's for instance a prominent figure in a group called By Any Means Necessary, not a reassuring name. And over the summer she was arrested, and there's a story we have on our internet site about it. Maybe we'll link it up. I'm looking at my colleague here telling him to put the link up. The teacher was arrested and charged with several crimes, including felony assault for inciting a riot in Sacramento. She was captured on a video calling a man a Nazi and punching him in the stomach repeatedly while shouting obscenities at him. More than a dozen people were injured in the riot, at least 10 with stab wounds, and the Capitol grounds there in Sacramento suffered thousands of dollars in property damage. Now the Berkeley School District is in a battle with this teacher. So this is perfect Judicial Watch work. This is activity we would want to find out about. We want to get a FOIA request out, or the California equivalent of a FOIA request. So her allies filed a lawsuit in federal court to try to stop the state from giving us the FOIA. Why? Because it looks like they don't like Judicial Watch. They said our request is illegal, and they attack us, calling us right-wing, saying they're trying to, we're part of a right-wing attack. And we're encouraging the school district to conduct a political witch hunt that would chill their freedom of speech, freedom of association, and right to engage in protected activities. So this person evidently wants to be able to do anything she wants, but we're not allowed to ask public officials about the conduct as this public employee using public resources. This is pretty extraordinary, and it shows you just how significant the threat is from these types of groups to the rule of law. So it's not just freedom of speech, it's the right to petition our government. Because they don't like Judicial Watch, because they call us a right-wing attack group or something like that, we're not allowed to ask questions about what our government is up to. That's at heart what this is. That's pretty scary stuff. So I encourage you to look at the entire story, and you can read all about this. But so this was a basic Freedom of Information Act request, California Public Records Act request, that has been turned into a federal case by the Antifa movement that is attacking Judicial Watch for asking questions, trying to hold its government accountable and a government official accountable, which a public school teacher is. And we're not asking for anything that would be inappropriate. It's a typical request we would have filed, and it's remarkable that we're now in a federal court fight over it. So they want to shut down our ability to ask our government what it's up to and hold our government to account. And if we can't do it, it means you can't do it. So this is going to be quite an interesting case. You know, the initial filings were made. Our lawyers we're going to have to expend money to deal with this, and resources and time, but we're willing to stand up for our rights in court. You can be sure of that. So we have a lot going on this week, and you know, I'm proud of Judicial Watch because we're doing the work that Congress isn't doing in terms of holding the special counsel accountable, and with this new lawsuit from the violent left, it shows you our questions about its activities are really well taken. You know, the old line is, you must be over, if you're taking flack, you must be over the target. And we're taking flack. And so we're happy to do it on behalf of you, our supporters and such. So, oh, I have to tell you about how to get the t-shirt. So a lot of people want to get Judicial Watch stuff. So, or they want to know, do you have Judicial Watch things that we can buy? And we hadn't had that. And so just recently we set up a store so you can get some, we have t-shirts and polo shirts. What else do we have? Baseball caps, coffee cups, pens. We got great ties. And this is the t-shirt. It's a nice t-shirt. And if you look in the back, what I like about it says, because no one is above the law. You see that? I don't know if you can see it. So it's a fun way to show your support for Judicial Watch. Obviously, if you buy this stuff, you support Judicial Watch, and I think we'll have a discount code for you for viewers of this video. So I encourage you to, I know it's coming up on holiday season, and I know a lot of you support us or know people who support us, so it'll be a great little gift to get for them or for yourselves, and support Judicial Watch at the same time. So thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and we'll be back with you next week. We've got other things in the hopper that you'll be excited to learn about, so be sure to stay tuned. Thanks again.